Welcome to the ADORNit studio. I'm Carolee, and this is my friend Janet Platt, and she's here with the company
Quickpointsruler.
And you can visit her website at
www.quickpointsruler.com.
We'd love you to join in with us today as she's going to teach this darling pillow. And what did you name this pattern?
It is the Quickpoints Scallop Ruffled Pillow.
Ruffled Pillow. And she's got the ruler and the coolest tool that she's going to show you step by step how to make this, and it makes it so it's easy sew. And did you hear that, girls? It's going to be easy sewing. And that's the key with her ruler. It's made it wonderful. And she's used the ADORNit fabric. And so we've partnered up today with this very theme, because when I went to a trade show and saw her rulers, I went, this is so neat. And she wanted to use our fabric, and I went, yes. So I'm so excited. And so between the two of us, we've brainstormed her coming up here and doing these classes. So thank you, Janet, for coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm going to turn the time over to her, and you anytime during your YouTube video can turn it off, slow it down, rewind. That's the beauty of taking this class with Janet. So thank you, everybody, and I'm going to turn the time over to Janet.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
This is so simple. I don't do anything hard. I have ADD, so everything's got to be simple or I get bored. So first of all, I'm going to use my 1-inch Quickpoints ruler. It's a scallop ruler, and you just measure to see how wide you need to cut the fabric. All you need is 4 inches. I've done that for you, so you don't have to watch me cut 4 inches of fabric. So then what you want to do after that, I'm going to set this over here so you can see, is I'm going to take this stool, because I'm so tall. I'm joking. And you want to put it together on the bias because of the curve of the scallop. And of course, if you're over 55, put on your bifocals. And when you do it on like the 45-degree angle, this is not on the bias, this is on the straight of grain or the width of fabric. Also, you want to drop your stitch length to a 2 because you are going around a curve. So I've already dropped my stitch length to 2. I'm using my 1/4-inch foot. So you just want to do it at a 45-degree angle. If you would like, you can mark it at a 45-degree angle. So when you get done sewing, let me show you, it will look like this. Okay? So I'm going to sew 4 lengths together of 2 different colors. Like I said, if you need to mark it, go ahead. I did it for years and years, but I do it so much, I could do this in my sleep. And once again, it is not on the bias. This is on the straight of grain or with the fabric, so it is selvage to selvage. Okay, then I'm going to do it in yellow and gray. I'm going to set this aside, then I'm going to do the yellow. While you're doing this, put on Downton Abbey when it comes out in January. Such a good movie. Or like my husband and I are watching Alias at this point. We didn't watch it when it was on years ago, so that's our new go-to movie when we're out of town on Netflix. Except he fell asleep last night when we were watching it. Gotta have something to do while you're doing this, otherwise you get kind of ADD bored. Now I go over here and I take and I cut the 45-degree angle at, okay, here it is, sorry. I cut this at a 45, and you cut a 1/4 inch, the extra fabric because you don't need it. Cut all this excess off. If you want, you can take a scissors too. I just happen to be a little on the overly nutty side. You can cut it a 1/4 inch with the scissors. I just like to make sure it's perfectly a 1/4 inch. Then you do it on the gray also. Whoops. There's going to be 4 lengths of fabric, 2 different colors. I have the gray and I have the yellow. And you're going to put right sides together after I iron it. So then you're going to iron the 45-degree angle. I do use Mary Ellen's Best Press. It is my favorite. Okay, so then what you want to do is place right sides together, 2 pieces of fabric. I'm using 2 different colors. You can use the same colors, but I want to do 2 different colors because this is going to be the pillow it's going to go on, and this is going to be the front. This is going to be the back. I like to use zippers. You can envelope it if you would like, but I'm using a zipper because I think it's easier to wash. Then what I do is I just place this on top, my ruler on top, and I just begin to trace. And I use those marking pens that go away with heat. They're by friction and Pilot, and they just go away with heat. They do come back at 25 below zero. It has happened. When we went on a trip, all of our markings came back on one of our quilts. I went, okay, it must have been 25 below zero. So it does come back. So all you do is trace around your ruler. Please mark everything that's on this ruler. Mark your end points, mark your centers, because everything on this ruler is needed. And this is something you can do while you watch TV also. Okay, then you move it down to the next, and you just keep going, 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 until you have all 4 lengths of fabric done. Just make sure you can see your centers and where you're supposed to sew to, where to go to, because that's where you're going to cut and sew to. And just keep going, 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 until you have all 4 lengths done. Okay, once you have traced around your ruler, I do put pins along the way so it does hold the 2 fabrics together. Then you can start sewing. Once again, drop your stitch length to a 2 so it is a little tighter when you go around your curves. Then you sit. Thank you. As you get more mature, it's good to sit. Put on your bifocals again if you need them. Then you just want to sew this is going to be your guide where you have traced. Then you want to use your 1/4 inch foot. Then all you're going to do is sew. Then I'm going to pivot. When you get down to your end point, what you want to do is stop, pivot, put 1 stitch across, because you need that 1 stitch across in order to turn it once you have clipped. If you don't, what happens is it is too tight and it doesn't look really good when you turn. Once again, you stop, pivot, 1 stitch across, and this is an erase. And once you've done this, you can go a lot faster. I'm just trying to go slow so I can show you that it is not a race. Once again, stop, pivot, do 1 stitch across, and so on. You just keep going, 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 going. And you do all around the whole 4 lengths of fabric. Just always make sure you do that 1 stitch across on your end point, which is marked on your piece of fabric. And like I said, there is no race. Okay, when you get down to the corner, you want to enclose both ends so that they are finished off. So once again, when you get down to the end point, you want to go 1 stitch across. Then when you get down to the end of the piece, you want to stop and enclose it with a 1/4 inch seam. And then just keep sewing, 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 and do the other side on the trace line, and just sew like you did on this side. Now that you are done sewing all around on both sides and enclosing the ends, now all you have to do is cut between the trace line and the sew line. You can either pink it, you can clip it, or you can cut it like you do when you applique. And that's what I usually do because it's the easiest and quickest way to do it. So you cut it 1/8 of an inch from your sew line and cut all the way around so it is in between the trace line and the sew line. You just want to get rid of all that excess fabric. So you cut when you go down to the end point to the sew line, not through the sew line. So you just keep cutting, cutting. And of course you want to do it on the opposite side also. Okay. Then after that, what you want to do, after you've cut the whole thing through, what you want to do is cut through the top layer only, through 1 layer, or you will have 2 halves. And bye-bye project. So you go through the top layer through 1 layer only. And this is where you've got your line, your center line, where you've marked. So you know exactly where to cut. So everything is marked there for you. And then after you've cut all this, then I'll show you what to do next. Now once you're done cutting all these scallops all the way down, then what you want to do is cut down the center through 1 layer. then what you want to do is flip right sides out. Then you've got that little end piece. Remember, your ends are they're enclosed on both ends. You've got that little thing right here, and I always use a rat tail comb, and of course I forgot it. So I'm just going to use this little guy to stick that up and just keep going, going, going. Then I use Mary Ellen's Best Press. It's my favorite. Put a little spray on. Then this is called the pusher. This is so you don't have to go like this and end up in a rubber room. I would have been the first one in there. And it makes the scallops perfect every time. You take the seam allowance, put them on the ends, and these are so you can iron on them, and it'll make a perfect scallop every time. We have one for the mini points also. This comes in every size, so you can make a perfect scallop. Then you just keep going, going, going. What I usually do is have my husband sit on that side. He starts on the other end and puts right sides out so that we can meet in the middle, so it takes less time. Of course, while I make him watch Alias, or I haven't got him into Downton Abbey yet, but we still have time. Once you're done pushing out all 160 inches on both sides of your scallops, then you're ready to ruffle it. This is my favorite foot on the Bernina machine. You just sit down, put your stitch length back to a 2.5. One thing I forgot to mention is when you do fold in half, make sure you put the rodges on the inside so there are no rodges on the outside. Okay, then what you want to do is put it on your ruffler on a 1 and just ruffle. There we go. So every stitch will be ruffled. It'll automatically make the flower. Also in the scallop, we also have 5 sizes. We have 1/2 inch all the way up to 2 inch. The 1/2 inch is really good on pot holders. The 3/4 inch is good for binding. The 1 and the 1.5 inch you can use for binding of the scallops. And the 2 inch is really good for pillows or bigger projects that you have. They're just really fun to use. Okay, so what you want to do, this is going to be a pillow. So what you want to do is find the center. So here's going to be the pillow. So what you want to do is fold it in half. Then you want to fold it in half again. And then I take and I put a pin right where the center is, and this will be your center. Then you open it up. And there's my center. Then to do the cute little flower, all you have to do is start rolling it. Then you take a thread and needle and you start sewing it as you go along. And because I'm lazy, I just put it on the cutting board and I start just rolling it. Use this to put through. Once the flower gets about this size, then what you want to do is attach it to your pillow. So you find your center. You don't have to hand sew the whole thing, just the center flower. So I'm just going to hand sew the center. Just make sure you sew it on securely. Okay, once it's on secure, I'll finish that after I show you the rest of it. Okay, that's good for the moment. Okay, let's go on to our next step. Then once you do that, then what you want to do is you take this, you want to make sure you do it evenly. All I do is I start wrapping this around to make a flower. You can do it as wide. You just want to make sure it's going to be even on all sides. Isn't this fabric beautiful? I just think it's just stunning. It's going to go so awesome with the other pillow and the quilt. It's just beautiful. Just make sure it is even. Usually at this point I take something to measure to make sure it's even, but it's looking pretty darn good. I take and I pin it. And then I'm going to zigzag it down with the sewing machine. Then I'm going to sew the pillowcase, or the pillow together. Excuse me, the pillow together. And this is going to be absolutely stunning. With the other accessories. Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start on the outside going in, and I'm going to just zigzag just on where I have ruffled, and I'm going to start sewing all the way in until I get to the center rows. So it's sewn on the pillow. So I'm going to start right here.
Okay, we are now finished with our lovely pillow that Janet's been working on and teaching. And as you can see, she has it all completed. It has a nice zipper, so then people can just easily remove it and wash if needed. And it's nice and fluffy. I love it.
Yeah, I like fluffy.
Yes, soft. And I love that when you were doing this and teaching it, you can see where the rosebud itself has a depth where it starts out a little higher and then kind of comes down. And then as she spiraled that around, That just made the most beautiful little rosebud bouquet.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Thank
and
you.
and I love how the Shamberry fabric has the yellow and gray mix with the text letters.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful,
Beautiful
effect.
fabric.
And look how different it is from this pillow to this pillow just by the choice of fabrics. And yet it's the very same technique and same of everything else.
And it goes beautiful with a quilt.
So it shows how your rulers can be used with any fabric,
Yes.
and it turns out absolutely beautiful. Now, she has used these rulers, and I guess we can just pick them up at any website or
website.
company. She was telling me there's the large, let me move my outfit here. There's the large ruler here, and then the smaller scallop size.
Yes, we have the 3/4 and the 1 inch is what I usually use for bindings. And then for the mini point, which is brand new, I have the 1 inch and the 1.5.
And then
And this is the 1.5 on this particular quilt. And I'm going to show you also how to put a binding on a quilt. This is going to be a pretend quilt. So all you do is do exactly what I did before. Enclose the ends like I showed before. And let's pretend this is the quilt. You fold it in half. You start in a corner, end in a corner. And this is going to be your binding, so it'll be on both sides. When you do the corners, all other 3 corners, all you do is miter it. So all you do,
fold it over,
miter it,
and then just keep going.
and keep going, going, going. And once again, you start in a corner, end in a corner. So you'd start in this corner, end in this corner. And so it'd end like this. And then all I do is top stitch it with my walking foot, do any decorative or straight stitch you would like. And you know your machines, they say when you buy a machine, you have 1,034 stitches. Well, use all the decorative stitches you could. And if
any of those decorative stitches would be gorgeous along there, because then it would just pick that up and show off right on that binding.
Exactly. And if it's too long, all you have to do is take and put right sides out. And then just sew it up and down, just like you did when we started.
To cut it off.
To cut it off, and then cut it off, right sides out, and then it'll end up looking just like this after you'd iron it all over again.
So that's kind of your tip for shortening this. And you
Correct.
could, if it wasn't long enough, you could trim one edge and lengthen it
Yes.
if needed. But you've started out with how many 4-inch strips, 4-inch wide?
Okay, for this one it is 4 lengths of fabric, selvage to selvage, 2 different colors.
And that was using this ruler.
This is using the 1 inch ruler.
This one's called the 1 inch.
Correct.
Okay.
Scallop ruler.
And what's the smaller size?
Smaller size is a 3/4. I usually use the 3/4 for baby quilts and under.
Okay, so that's a nice tip.
And for bigger quilts, I use the 1 inch.
Okay, so and on the rosette, you've used the larger, and
Correct.
like you had said, it turned out darling.
Thank you.
Now, okay, now on this quilt,
It's your fabric too.
that's nice.
No, it's true.
Between the two products, it sure worked out
Yes,
neat.
it's beautiful.
Now on this, you use the wider, and again, do you use the smaller one for baby quilts?
Yes.
And any other recommendations for the smaller?
The smaller one, I do have smaller sizes, the 1/2 inch and the 3/4. The 1/2 inch and 3/4 I usually use for pot holders.
Oh, okay, for little
Pot
cute little
holders,
mini
exactly.
projects. Anything that's on the smaller scale, you'll choose the smaller ruler.
Yes.
Larger pieces, you'll use. And I loved how you easily binded this, because she just showed that technique of how to bind the quilt, and you can see she did it with a scallop. But again, we can get up close here. You can see this is the back side of the quilt.
Yes.
She's gone and she's done a stitch along it, and then this is the front side of the quilt. So that cute little scallop, or the picot that she makes, ends up being on both sides to finish that quilt edge.
And then you don't have to do
That's
hand
clever.
stitching.
Yeah, yeah. And it's dimensional. So then you haven't sewed down any of your edges here, and it makes it so it's just darling. So
Thank
it
you.
kind of has a little fluff to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the exact way you can use the scallop, or you can use the picot edge like she said. And I just love your little tips and tricks and everything you've been able to show. This was kind of time consuming, but in the end, well worth it.
Yes.
And I love the little push tool.
Well, that's so you don't end up in a rubber room from going like this. Because I couldn't do it otherwise.
And I noticed as you were sewing and teaching us, this, like you said, it can be heated because you just laid an iron on it. And I love the little starch product that you had used.
Yes, Mary Ellen's Best Press.
And she was telling me that she likes that best because it's not as sticky to
It's
work
not
with.
sticky. I did hair for 36 years. I was a hairdresser, and I don't care when I'm doing hair if my hands are sticky, but when I sew, I don't want them sticky.
Yeah. Well, boy, we sure did get a treat today having you come and teach us how to make this pillow.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I had a ball.
Good, good. And I'm sure everyone who watches this class all the way through, you're going to feel enriched and you're going to want to go out and get one of these rulers. Try the ADORNit fabric because it works so well.
ADORNit fabric's beautiful.
Great quality fabric. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.